Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is trafficking. What does trafficking look like? We keep seeing those messages shared on social media about someone who was followed around Walmart, or there was a white van parked next to theirs, or they're putting the Apple tracker things on people's vehicles, or they're putting certain marks, dots on people's windshields. Most of those are false rumors. It is actually possible to track people through their phones. The most likely culprit is going to be someone in a relationship with that person. The most likely person to stalk and follow any individual is going to be someone they have a relationship with. So if human trafficking doesn't look like being kidnapped in the Walmart parking lot, and I'm going to tell you why that's unlikely. Traffickers are business people. They are in it to make money. I cannot think of a much higher risk way to get people to traffic than kidnapping them in the store or the parking lot of a busy store. They're so much more likely to be caught because there's so many witnesses and there's cameras. So that's unlikely. Do we run into garden variety creepers and abusers in Walmart? Yes. Can people be harassed and assaulted in the store? Yes. But human trafficking is not very likely taking place there. So what does it look like? Where is it happening? First of all, let's look at how many people are trafficked. In 2017, Polaris is an NGO that has a mission to stop human trafficking. So they are kind of the repository for information about trafficking. In 2017, there were 7,255 victims of sex trafficking, 1,979 victims of labor trafficking, and 542 victims of both sex and labor trafficking reported in the US. So what do all those mean? We think of trafficking, we think sex trafficking, but labor trafficking also happens. Labor trafficking is when someone is forced to work. Their earnings may be withheld, or maybe payment against a debt because room and board was forwarded to them, and they just maintain that person in debt all the time. People at risk for labor trafficking are often immigrants, or people who have a difficult time getting a job legally. These are typically going to be under the table jobs, because then the boss can keep the employee. Usually actually a trafficked person can keep them dependent. There are some organizations that are very near trafficking. There are organizations that recruit young people to go and sell magazine subscriptions or candy or whatever. And some of those are actually legitimate organizations, but there are some of those in which the people who are recruited to go and sell door to door are actually transported to different cities, required to stay in the same hotel as a group, and they're kind of stranded in that city without transportation out, and they're told, you owe this much money, you've got to sell this much to pay off that debt before you can leave. That's also a form of trafficking. So I want to talk though about sex trafficking. So if sex traffickers aren't kidnapping people at Walmart and selling them in foreign countries, what does it look like? Escort services are sometimes fronts for traffickers. Residential prostitution services are sometimes fronts for traffickers. Outdoor solicitation. So outdoor people, street corner prostitutes may be trafficked. There are a number of voluntary sex workers in the United States. There are also a lot of sex workers in the United States in both illegal and in legal porn who are not there by their choice. They're forced. So how do they end up there? How does someone end up being forced into sex work? The recruitment tactics that are most common are either intimate partner or marriage. So someone is in a relationship and their relationship partner coerces, forces, gradually moves them until they are involved in prostitution. Family members. For children, it's most commonly family members. Family members are the most common way that children are sold into sex trafficking. And that may happen while they're still living at home. They may be living at home and being trafficked locally. The traffickers may pose as a benefactor. They tend to target vulnerable people. So they may pose as, I'm going to help you out. I'm going to give you this. And then, okay, I gave you all that. I'll let you stay here for free. I gave you money for food. Now you owe me. It may be covered as a job offer. There are instances of people who are trying to immigrate to the U.S. Being given job offers. They're brought over, and then the job offer doesn't actually exist, and they are trafficked either for labor or for sex or both. And there are other false offers or fraudulent instances where someone is tricked. So kind of move away from that view of someone's going to grab you or your children and traffic them by force, and think more of confusion and coercion, confusion and grooming. Traffickers tend to groom. The people that are most at risk for being trafficked are those who have recently relocated or migrated, in particular if they are poor. People who are substance users or substance abusers, people with substance use disorders. Runaway or homeless children and teens, so kids who have been kicked out of their homes or who have run away. People with mental health disorders. All of those are vulnerable groups. It makes sense, right? So it's easier to groom them. It's easier to convince them that this is what they need to be doing. And it's usually not a first step. They don't come out, find the kid on the internet and say, hey, let's go out and have you have sex for money. It's they become a friend, and then they maybe develop a deeper relationship, or another relationship. The victim thinks it's deeper. And eventually they just gradually move that person's boundaries until they're doing things that they never thought they would do. Exposure to CPS is also a risk factor. Okay, so in the next section, we're going to talk about some interventions.